What's up, buds? Today I'm doing a bike check and review of my 2021 Transition Spire.
What's up, guys?
So I've had this bike and been riding it for about a month now. So I've got some time on it to tell you guys how I like it. We're gonna start with the bike check because this bike isn't 100% stock. Once we do that, I'll go to the review of how I like the bike compared to my Enduro. So first off, I changed the bars to 1UP carbon bars, 35 mil rise. The stock bars were kind of hurting my wrists, so I don't think they had enough back sweep, so we changed those. We got Truvative grips on there, SRAM code RSC brakes. Now, usually we hate on SRAM brakes quite a bit because the only ones we've ran before this are the code Rs. These RSCs have actually impressed me quite a bit. I hate to say it, but I actually do like them. Rotors, we have the Magura MDRP rotors. I just really like those rotors. I've had good luck with them, so I swapped them from my Enduro to here. Shifting is stock SRAM GX shifting. The cassette is changed though. That is the E13 Helix R cassette in the bronze color. Really like that cassette. It's light. I've had no issues with it, so I would recommend getting that cassette. Dropper lever is 1UP, and the dropper post is also 1UP, which is a massive upgrade over the Enduro's dropper that was on there. The saddle is the Ergon Enduro, which I had on the Enduro, moved it to this bike because I liked it so much. Don't ride with a chamois because that seat is that comfortable. Next up, we've got a Bontrager tool, multi-tool that goes in the steerer tube of the Zeb. That's actually a really good multi-tool, and I like everything about it, except that if it gets wet, it does start to rust, which kind of sucks. Suspension. We have the stock Rockshox Zeb Unlimited on the front.
What the hell is even that?
Suspension. We have the stock Rockshox Zeb Unlimited on the front, which I had on the Enduro. Really like that. But this is where there's kind of a big change to the Spire from stock. I put on my Fox DHX2 factory coil shock. So this shock is a shorter stroke than the stock shock that comes on here, which was a Rockshox Super Deluxe. This has been a huge upgrade. I'll talk about that more in the review of the bike, but that has been a game changer. Moving to wheels and tires. Up front, I have the E13 LG1 Race Carbon wheels with a Michelin AM2 tire on there. And on the back, I have the E13 Race Carbon E-Spec wheel with the Michelin AM2 tire on there. The reason I have an E-Spec on the back, it's stronger, 32 spoke compared to 28 up front because I was constantly breaking spokes. The only other thing we talk about on the bike check side of things is pedals. Right now I'm running the DD Black Cat. That changes a lot. I'm usually on the Mallet E's. I'm usually clipped in. Right now we're having some fun on flats. All right, now for the review of my 2021 Transition Spire. So the only other bike I have to compare this to is my 2021 Specialized Enduro. Compared to that bike, this bike is pretty similar. 170 front and back, both of them. It's about a 480, 485 reach depending on high or low setting. Pretty similar to the Enduro. This is a 63-degree head tube angle or 62.5 depending on high or low, which is also very similar to the Enduro. And it's 29er. This is full 29er. My Enduro was full 29er. Overall, this is a very similar bike to my Enduro, and I like it way more. I was on the Enduro for 2 years or 2 seasons, so I really was used to that like plowing like a magic carpet type feeling ride on the Enduro. I just wanted something different. Wanted something more playful and more poppy and kind of more overall fun for all the riding we do. We do a lot of park riding, but we do live in Ohio, so we have to pedal. This bike is that specifically. It is oddly playful for how big of a bike it is. It is a full 29er, 170 mils of travel bike. Like it's a big bike, but it doesn't really feel like that much of a big bike on the trail. So flatter trails, more pumpy type stuff, It feels really fast and playful, like you can pull off stuff, almost like you're on a 150 trail bike. Compared to the Enduro, it's way better in that aspect. I don't know if it's faster than the Enduro. We haven't done much racing since I've got this. So speed is kind of, I don't know, it's all relative. The one thing about this that I didn't like right from the beginning and in its stock form was the Rockshox rear shock. So here at Horns Hill, we have more downhill type trails. There are a lot of braking bumps in a lot of the trails. And the Rockshox rear shock, it kind of had this feeling on the Enduro also. It just feels chattery. So going over those braking bumps, it always felt like it was skipping and it just never felt right. No matter what I messed with the suspension settings, it just never felt good. The Zeb always feels good, so it was kind of weird. So I took my coil shock from the Enduro. It's the same 205 dimensions, so that worked. Put it on there and rode it with a coil shock, and the coil shock makes a massive difference. All those like jittery braking bumps where it felt like the rear end was skipping around and not hooking when you're going through those are completely gone. It now feels like more similar to the Enduro in terms of you can plow through stuff and it holds traction, but it also didn't lose that like poppy playfulness that this bike originally had with the air shock on here. Now it does have about 160 mils of travel in the back right now because that's a shorter stroke shock. This is a 205 by 60. It comes stock with a 205 by 65. I might upgrade that to the correct length, correct stroke shock, but right now I don't really have a real reason to. I just get to bottom out just a tad bit sooner. It really doesn't bottom out that much. I'm running a 550-pound spring. If I wanted more grip and traction to feel more like the Enduro, I could go down to a 500 or a 525. Then I would probably want the full length stroke of a shock. Other pluses over the Enduro are really just the general build quality. So as you guys know, I broke 2 Enduros and Blake broke 2 Enduro frames, and that just doesn't instill a whole lot of confidence when you're riding that bike, because I always felt like it could crack at any time. Like if I hit a drop weird or hit a rock garden weird, the frame was gonna crack and I would either crash or I'd have to be out for 2 months without a frame. The build on this frame is way more burly than what the Specialized Enduro feels like. First of all, the head tube is massive. It just looks and feels like it'd be bomb-proof, and I really, really like that. I really like that it also has a pressed in cup, so you're not putting a bearing and trying to make it fit perfectly in a carbon mold. They press in a cup and then you put the bearing in the cup. Everything just works tighter and better. I like that way more than what I was working with the Enduro. The other thing is just the lines of the frame. I like that more rugged, boxy kind of look, kind of like what the Zeb has on the front. Now this frame carries those lines, same as the front of the Zeb, but it has it all the way down the frame, which I really enjoy. The only things, if I had to nitpick about this bike, ride quality is perfect, wouldn't change anything now that I have that coil shock on there. Everything else is great except for the paint. The paint is one of those things that I would prefer having a gloss clear coat on my bike rather than just having a matte or a satin finish. I feel like the satin and matte paints kind of scuff and scrape and scratch pretty easily compared to a clear coat. I really like the look of a gloss bike, so if I had to nitpick, that would be one thing. The other thing, if I had to nitpick, would be when you clean this bike, overall, it is 100 times easier to clean than the Enduro. And if you've ever had a new model of the Enduro, you'll know that it's a pain to clean. This is super easy to clean. The only thing I don't like is the lower shock mount holds water. So when you're cleaning that, you have to spray out the dirt and everything in there. I feel like that's counterproductive when you're spraying something that has grease with it. You usually don't want to do that. So if I had to nitpick, that'd be the only thing. Another thing that I really like, and it's not so much of like I hated this on my Enduro, but the rear brake line is routed on the outside of the frame. Some people don't like that. Some people don't think it looks very clean, but I like having easy access to that. If I want to change brakes or if I break something on my rear lever, it's now super easy to change that without having to cut a line and do all that stuff that you had to do on an Enduro. Enduro had internal cable routing, which was good, but you had to cut the cable to be able to fish it through, either putting it on or taking it off. Now I have the ability to take it off and on without cutting anything. So that's something that I personally like. I know some people don't like the look of it, but I don't have an issue with that. The Spire is a full 29er setup. I actually prefer the full 29er setup. Blake is actually on the mullet patrol. If you haven't watched that video, it's our last video. Go check it out, see how he likes it. I prefer full 29er setup because I feel like going through rock gardens and stuff, the mullet, the 27.5 back wheel felt like it was hanging up more compared to a 29er. Now, I'm not good enough to be able to tell the difference between a full 29er and a mullet bike in every type of condition and corners and all this other stuff. So I don't have much to say about that.
What's up, buds? Celebrity appearance. If you're watching this video after watching my video last week, I had a few people in the comments that were wondering, since this is obviously a 29er that Chase is on, the Enduros were 29ers, and now I'm on a mullet. I had a few of you guys asking, what's the actual difference and what do I notice between the mullet? So there's honestly not a whole lot of difference. So if you don't change anything on the bike and just put a 27.5 in the rear, the only main thing you're gonna notice is more ass end clearance. So when it gets steep or when you case something or whatever, when it gets crazy, you're probably not gonna buzz your butt as often as you would on a 29er. A lot of people think that just slapping on a 27.5 wheel in the back is gonna make the bike way more playful and poppy and better in corners. And in my opinion, that doesn't happen unless you also change wheelbase and, more importantly, chainstay length. So as a whole, going to a mullet just from a 29er without changing much or anything at all, you're really not going to gain a whole lot, and you might honestly lose more than you think, because in big breaking bump bomb holes or rock gardens, the wheel is quite a bit smaller, so it's definitely going to get hung up on stuff just a little bit more than a 29er.
And like I said, that is the only thing that I noticed when I put a 27.5 on my bike was through rock gardens. It just felt a little more harsh. 29er, I don't get that, and I really don't buzz my butt that often, so that's why I have a 29er bike.
I don't know the exact numbers from the chainstay, from the Enduro to the Patrol to the Spire, but I do know that they're all pretty damn close. So there's not a big enough difference in wheelbase and chainstay length to where I notice a huge difference. So the only difference I notice is I don't buzz my butt very often. I didn't do it a whole lot on the Enduro, but I definitely do it significantly less on a mullet. And the biggest reason that we're both on different bikes this year is just because we both didn't want to be on the same bike again. We
wanted you guys out.
Yeah, we wanted to both experience different things. I like a mullet, I like a 29er, so this year we wanted some different things to give you guys our opinions on both.
And they're both sick.
Yeah.